Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks! What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and welcome to this week's episode of The Knife Guys. So what are we talking about? First off, I want to say in no way is this episode meant as I'm trying to present some profound realization that has never been thought about. Actually, I feel like all of us have thought about this in one way, shape, or form, and it's just something that I find interesting to talk about. Part of this is going to be something that I've discussed before, and I'm in some ways I'm adding thoughts to it, but I want to kind of crescendo on this topic, and I want to hear your guys' thoughts as per usual. But if you remember, getting into the knife world, and we all start off in the same place. None of us are actually, of course, we're not born with the knowledge of the knife world, and even those of us like somebody like me who's been actively involved in this community for, I would say, a good 12 years. The first 2 years, it's been 14 years. The first 2 years were kind of discovery, right? So that, even people like me, we still have an infinite amount of things to discover and learn about, right? We're never, we never know everything, is what I'm trying to say. It's an infinite journey. But I remember those first 2 years, and it starts off with, oh, neat. There's this neat looking pocket knife at Walmart, right? Or, there's the earlier years where you're given a knife by dad or uncle or whoever, right? And then you just have a pocket knife, and and your friends have pocket knives. But the first time, when it clicks for knife people is kind of like the first time that you have, some disposable income. And I remember being an adult. I remember being 19 or something like that. And I've told this story before, and walking by the knife counter at Walmart, which had always intrigued me, but I've never really stopped and been, stunned by something in there. And the knife that got me was the blacked out Kershaw Blur Tanto with the serrations, right? And I was like, wow, neat, right? And at that moment, I just assumed, because that was the coolest knife I'd ever seen. I was like, this knife looks serious. I don't know a whole lot about the knife world, so this must be like one of the best knives in existence. I didn't say all of that to myself, but that's what you do. You can only judge objects based on what you know about them, and I knew basically nothing other than knife sharp, knife cut. Is black, looks cool. Tanto, cool, right? And it was assisted. Ooh, neat. We couldn't have switchblades back then in Kansas, so assisted, right? That's pretty much a switchblade. We find out later that's not the case, but it made me feel cool. So then, I buy the knife without doing any research whatsoever, because, what research is there to do? I got everything I need right here at the glass display case at Walmart, right? So you buy it, and then you kind of, I just sat around and flicked it for a while, and I showed it to my roommate, and he's like, oh, cool, And then somehow I ended up, I don't even remember, what went into this, what it went into the process, but it was I was trying to find out something about maybe, I think I Googled something like black steel, because I didn't realize, this is how dumb I was, I didn't realize that it was a coating. Even though the edge was exposed and you could see, I was like, this must be some type of special steel, right? This is part of the reason why I crack jokes on this type of stuff now, because I remember being, uneducated. And so I find the exact knife, and then I find, there's numbers and letters associated with the steel. And I cannot remember back then if it was 12C27 or if it was 14C28N. I can't remember. Me, falling in love with the Kershaw Blur, which is to this day still an excellent knife despite it being assisted, it was pure luck. Pure luck. I just was like, that looks cool. It's not like I had some intuition like, ugh, my inner future knife guy is selecting this golden spectacle of awesomeness. No, I was just like, I want that one. Give me that black Tanto. That was it, right? There was nothing else to it. There was no, there was no legend foretells the coming of, it wasn't like that. So I looked it up and I was like, oh wait, there's a number associated. I was like, so this is the steel? Well, wait. So this is that's the name of the steel. So there are different types of steels. I remember that being like this amazing thing to me. So I thought it was just steel, right? I thought we went It was just, people making blades out of iron. And then at some point, someone was like, if you like put coal and you smash it together and melt it, it makes it better. And they're like, what? Nuh-uh. Yeah, look here. See, it's like, it looks the same, but it works better. Oh. Okay, well, yeah, let's do that. So they just tossed the iron. Now, then it was like, iron was stupid, and then it was just steel. And then my brain told me, yeah, that's just that we've just not gone any further than that. So then I found it infinitely interesting that there are different types of steel. Well, what's the best steel, right? That's your immediate next question. Well, at the time, believe it or not, 12, 13 years ago, I think M390 was it was around that time, and everybody was worshiping M390. Wow. People are still worshiping M390. Let's take a moment to, right, blindly worshiping. So then I was like, wow, okay, so there's all these different types of steel. I didn't even know that I needed this, right? So all of my problems were already solved with this knife. This knife cut, and it cut the stuff I needed it to cut, which was pretty basic. And I wasn't, back then I probably would have used a knife for almost anything. Initially I would have been like, I don't want to scratch it, and then I would have scratched a little bit and I'm like, well, whatever. Right? And you just cut, and it goes dull. And somebody like me, I'm 19 or 20, and it's dull, but to me, it's not dull. You just, it's a knife, so it's sharp. Like how many people do you know walking around with their knives are completely dull, and they're still using it to cut into boxes because it works for them, right? They have not experienced resharpening it yet and realizing, oh, wow, it's actually way better. So they just keep using it, and it works as far as they're concerned. So to them, it's not a problem that needs to be fixed, right? So for a long time, I had no issues that needed to be fixed. And then I discovered things that I realized would solve problems that I wasn't really sure I actually had, but it was just like, wow, that's interesting. So now I have to have this, right? And it just keeps going, right? Well, now I got the best steel. Look at this. Well, what about and here's the blade forms days. Okay, but what about the heat treat? And I'm like, what do you mean the heat treat? It's M390. It's the best steel. No, I mean, how is it heat treated? I'm like, what? Heat treat? You mean there's varying levels of performance based on this so-called heat treat? And people are like, well, yeah. I'm like, well, dang it. So I'm like, well, it's been working for me, but I have no idea how it's heat treated. Well, now I got to seek out the best heat treatment. All right, now, here we go. I got me a folding knife, and it's the right, and there's these other things and locking mechanisms, and I discover what do you mean ergonomics, right? It just needs a handle. It's got a handle, and it's got a blade, right? Well, but does it fit your hand really well? I don't know. I hadn't really thought about it. I can hold it. Yeah, but I mean, is it comfortable? I don't know. Crap. Well, they say that this knife is comfortable. Let me go, oh boy, that is comfortable. Yeah. Just ignoring the fact that this knife that just has a handle, that it's not necessarily ergonomic by the standards of the knife community, right? But it compared to this knife that I am now holding, that's very comfortable. At the time, it was the ZTO 562, and I was like, wow, this makes my old knife look totally ridiculous. Again, remember, my old knife, right, or multiple knives in between, the Kershaw Blur actually just happened to have decent ergonomics, right? But again, I was forgetting, actually, this knife that I spent at the time, I think I spent $56. I remember I bought one for me and one for my dad. $56. It did everything that I needed it to do, and it was probably still overkill, right? That knife, I didn't need to go past it, but I was learning about all these other things that could that could solve these imaginary problems for me, right? Now, I'm not saying that these elements aren't important. Obviously, for some people, they definitely are. But for me, as a 19-year-old with the Kershaw Blur, none of these other things were issues for me. It worked, right? So I'm like, okay, so in ergonomics, and I got the M390 steel now, and I honestly, I can't remember what ZT was heat treating their M392, but at some point I remember getting my hands on a knife that I knew was listed 61 to 62, which is, I think M390 can actually be hardened higher. The optimal zone is somewhere in there. I don't want to start splitting hairs or making this about heat treatment. And again, please Don't stir up a big argument about heat treat, all that. That's not what this is about, right? You're missing the point. If that's what you're going to zero in on, you're missing the point. So I'm like, there we go, I got it. And then people are like, well, but like, it's still on blade forms. What about the geometry of the blade? I'm like, what do you mean the geometry of it cuts? Yeah, but I mean, is it really optimal? I mean, for M390, the heat treatment, considering what you're doing with it, is it really optimal? Because there are blades. And I was like, I guess I could. I guess that maybe is a problem. I don't know if that's a problem for me, but I want, right? So we keep doing that, right? You do it. And we could argue for a million years about whether or not, honing and refining this and that and blah, 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 and doing that is actually beneficial. This is what I truly believe. I think we are, and I've said this before, and I could be totally wrong. This is just me, like, guessing. I think we are 5 to 10 years from the knife world as we know it being completely and totally unrecognizable. What? What do you mean by that? So right now we have people who, are grinding incredible steels, and some people are getting it right. They're getting the heat treat right. They're making blades in all different geometries that are specialized, right? We have ultra specialized equipment for people who have ultra specialized occupations. In rare cases, it's usually just collectors obsessing over these elements who have taken a similar path, right? So we have people doing this, right? And we have this growing community of people who are obsessing over this because it is interesting, right? And again, I'm sure you guys will do it. I'm going to look down in the comments after this video and I'm going to see exactly what I'm talking about. We can split hairs all day about whether or not optimizing this stuff is actually truly beneficial. But the truth is that we are going to inevitably, it doesn't matter what anybody thinks, this is, I still technically have to say that it's my opinion, right? Because the Earth could get hit by an asteroid and that would halt progression of everything, right? So I'm 99.99999% sure that we are going to relive the it's going to be a future version of what happened when we figured out that steel could be created, right? And we were like, well, these iron blades aren't any good anymore. I mean, like, are there still people who maybe can take a hunk of iron and turn it into a blade? Sure, but it's like a novelty kind of, it's considered an outdated and overly primitive way of making a blade, right? You make it out of steel. Even the cheapest, most blah steels, right? Like an iron blade, as far as I understand, I'm sure there's way more science, and somebody's going to tell me, well, technically, you could still make an iron blade out of wool. I don't know why I'm doing Mr. Mackey for that, right? That's how I hear you, right? When I read the first quarter of the comment and it's like a book, it's like Mr. Mackey's voice, and then I go on to the next thing because I just can't. And that sounds really pompous, but I don't mean to shut down anybody's experience or education on the matter. It's just like, yeah, thanks, I've heard it, I get it. And I'm not above being educated. I'm just saying that is an outdated, no matter who you are, how much knowledge you have on it, creating a blade out of iron is essentially pointless, right? Making it out of 1095 even, or just some basic steel is, it's going to be better. I mean, I know all steel has iron in it, but making something 1095, is still going to be better. That's why we don't do that anymore. So essentially, at some point, it's going to evolve past that, right? And we already have materials like tungsten carbide that are not steel. We have teravantium, which is dendritic cobalt, not steel. These things, right, they're not perfect. And tungsten carbide is not a perfect solution to steel, and neither is dendritic cobalt, right? But we're obviously messing around with this stuff because people like to keep pushing the boundaries of it gets way beyond necessary. It's just like, no, I got to keep pushing this because I'm obsessing over this, right? At some point, we're going to find the next thing that makes, and this is going to be hard, I think, for people to swallow, but it's going to make, steel blades, no matter how crazy the composition, it's going to make it a thing of the past. And beyond that, even, it's like some people like to sharpen with guided systems. Some people like to sharpen by hand and all of that. At some point, I think getting your blade sharpened perfectly will be as simple as just putting it into an automatic guided machine, and this will be a home product at some point. It sounds crazy, right? If they were to do this right now, if some company is like, hey, we have this home product where you can program it, you can be like, I want it hollow, I want it 16 thousandths behind the edge, right? And then I want a stonewash finish on it, and I want a mirror edge. And you just put it in there and it goes, and there you go, right? If they were to do that right now, that's something that would cost you a crap load of money. It would cost you an insane amount of money. But at some point, I really believe that will be a thing, right? There will be a home product that just does that. And perhaps this material, this God blade material, right, will make it easier on the machine, whatever it's made out of, right? It'll make it so that whatever the machine is made out of and the process involved with sharpening this material, both things will be fairly inexpensive and will perform in a way that is vastly superior to anything we have right now, creating just an ultimate solution. That's kind of a scary thing to think about, right? I really believe that at some point that will happen, and maybe not in 5 years, maybe that's more like 10 years, right? Where you just have a thing in your home. And then we'll all have 3D printers where you're like, what do I feel like carrying today? I'll just print myself this, scale material, and then I'll, just have this thing, make me a blade, and you probably make it however you want, and then I'll have this thing, sharpen it, and just, and it's just perfect. And there it is, right there, right? It's not like it's not going to cost us any money. Perhaps things will even out, and the total cost of having the equipment do that will run you $250, right? So we're essentially where we are, where we buy, something that's been made, we buy it for $250 from a retailer, right? Maybe it evens out like that so that there's profit, or maybe you buy like the schematics, or you buy the CAD information, or I don't know. I have no idea. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I understand CAD or anything like that. But I'm just saying that's a totally, for me, that is a force that seems like something that's totally plausible, right? So what's your point? My point is that the knife community, and we're not the only enthusiast community who's like this. Even when that day comes, which again I believe is an inevitability, and it will absolutely flip the knife world upside down. Even when that happens, the people who are interested in pocket knives and fixed blades and swords and all that, we have this thing that we do where we're like, wow, the new thing is really cool. But I also like the old thing, and I'm just going to keep enjoying the old thing because whatever, right? So while what we enjoy right now will become like a complete and total novelty, a lot of us just continue to enjoy that. And think about the automotive industry, right? In the very near future, it's not going to be crazy, right? For like your brand new vehicle, which is just like today's Toyota Camry, right? If you were to tell me 10 years ago that a Toyota Camry could have 300 horsepower, I'd be like, get out of my house, right? That's insane. Well, now it's like, yeah, they just have that. Like, that's not really that big of a deal, right? Half-ton pickups, generally, they're 400 horsepower. What? Right? Yeah, they're going to make electric vehicles that will blow the doors off of everything, and they'll just be regular. Tomorrow's Toyota Camry will be a lightning fast electric vehicle that will just make most gas powered vehicles of the past look ridiculous, right? That just make them look silly. How steel blades made iron blades look ridiculous, or I think more so how current finer compositions make iron blades look, right? I mean, it would just be silly. We can make something now that, we can make swords now that would just make weapons of the past laughable, right? I mean, as much as people like to believe, like, no, there's ancient techniques from the temples and the hidden Cloud Temple, Dragon Clan, where they actually have been forging blades superior. Like, shut up. I'm sorry. I feel bad that that's the world you live in, but no, that's not true. Cloud Temple legend has it, the ancient forging masters have been ahead of the times. Yes, the simple,
peasants of the modern world know not of the ancient wisdom of Cloud Temple, whatever. No, that's silly, right? It's fun to live in fantasy worlds every now and then, but that's ridiculous, right? We live in a world of progression, right? I'm not saying everything now is better than the past, but as far as like the stuff we make and the efficiency of things, generally speaking, yeah, it's really hard to argue against that. Yeah, at some point that's going to happen, but we still enjoy it. It's not like now it's like, oh wow, electric cars exist that you can get, and at some point like the technology it'll be less expensive. I mean, however we balance out with income and things, right? Averages and all that. The cost of that will come down, and at some point it won't be that crazy for just like a normal person to be driving an electric vehicle that would absolutely blow the doors off of whatever Z06 Corvette we have right now, like something we would consider a really fast car. We already live in that world, except that these newer electric vehicles are not cheap, right? Nothing's cheap right now. But we still enjoy it, like when I see a 69 RTSE Charger with a 426 in it, I go, dang, that is cool, right? Big old heavy steel boat with 450 horsepower, right? Yeah, a Tesla would absolutely disintegrate that car in a drag race. It would disintegrate it. Right, now I'm inviting the enthusiasts. Well, if you beef up the blah 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 blah, right? You're the same as the Dragon Temple guys, right? Sure, right? But technology will always allow us to make something better and better and better until something is completely and totally obsolete, right? So at some point, what we enjoy right now, it will be not just the equivalent of how we used to make iron blades. It'll be like cavemen trying to sharpen rocks, right? That's something that is unnecessary and totally obsolete. And even the novelty of like somebody, making an arrowhead out of obsidian, cool, but there's basically no use for it, right? There's essentially no use for that whatsoever. I'm sure I'll get arguments, but in the modern world, there's no use for it. So at some point, all of this stuff is going to be like that. All of this stuff that we've spent so much time and energy researching and trying to perfect and trying to learn, make better and blah, blah, blah. And people like me have built these massive collections. It'll all be, a thing of the past. For a while, it'll be novelty and maybe the value will be up there and we can kind of whatever with it. But I think it's great, and it sounds like I'm being really negative, but actually my ultimate message here is what I think is really great and what gives me faith in just the overall, the health and the expansion of the knife world as these years progress is a lot of us just kind of like to keep liking what we like, even if things progress, right? Tungsten carbide blades exist, right? There are knives that exist now that would, that make a lot of the stuff that I have collected look silly, look totally, unoptimized and ridiculous and over the top. And I'm really glad that stuff exists, right? The same way I think it's really cool that some of these electric cars are able to just like, holy cow, it's amazing. But it doesn't make me, like the 69 Charger less, right? I still think that's kind of cool. So it's kind of neat that we have people in the community who are obsessing over efficiency and performance and blah, 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 blah. That's neat. That's an interesting corner. We all still kind of like to just enjoy what we enjoy, even if it is outdated, right? If you're somebody that makes blades out of iron in your garage, honestly, I don't even know. Like, I honestly don't know that much about it. I'm just like, I just know that we don't do that anymore, right? I'm not somebody who forges, steel or anything like that, or forges blades or anything like that. If you do that and you enjoy it, then that's really all that's important, right? If it's not like you don't have to be creating or enjoying something that is completely and totally optimized and modern, right? If it's making you happy, then you just keep doing. And that's what's cool is the knife world. We enjoy things in there are fads, and sometimes fads include bringing back classic things, right? Here recently we went through hey, let's bring back slip joints and modernize them, right? We are substantially ahead of any time period where that wasn't an optimal tool, right? My opinion is that slip joints are really cool and I find them interesting and I'm happy they exist as an enthusiast, but more efficient safer, more optimized tools exist for the same amount of money in any category: budget, mid-range, high-end, custom, and ultra custom, right? I mean, if you like the knife world, I mean, look at everything out on the table. There's nothing out on the table that is absolutely necessary for anybody, right? I'm just glad we have people obsessing in so many different directions, and this community is not always about perfection and optimization, right? So, do I think the knife world will be unrecognizable in 10 years? Absolutely. Do I think that it will kill everything that we love about it now? Absolutely not. It's neat, right? I don't know what you could gain from that. I just find it interesting to think about. And I know that people will expand on this in my comment section in a really meaningful way, and I'm really interested to hear what everybody thinks. So, anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of The Knife Guy. These are always fun for me to do. I guess we'll get out these knives here at the end, because that always makes people mad when I don't do it. The Liang Ma Model 18 in Mokutai and Damasteel. We have, you guys haven't seen me unbox this thing yet. This is the Bestech Fairchild, which is actually super cool. We have the new EK, I think this is an eKnives exclusive non-flipper Eclipse, which is very cool. We have the Mokame Gain Corvus 3 from Maxace. Maxace is just, they are on a rampage right now. Like, they are just pumping out some crazy stuff. My new S90V and Zircotai Spyderco Shaman. Those Zircotai scales are from Metenboss. We have the new Artisan Cutlery button lock, and the name of it is freaking escaping me right now. And it's a Laconico design. I'm so sorry. I can't remember the name of it. We have the Riyadh Jack 1.5 in Zircotai. We have the new Microtech and Reich Annex. And of course, my daily carry, the Demco AD 20.5 in titanium and 3V, which is barely going to fit on camera. Okay, that's going to be pretty much it today. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. I don't know why I did that. Sorry, I won't do that again. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.